From your local election headquarters, here's Fred Childers with This Week in Louisiana Politics.
Good Sunday morning to you. I'm Fred Childers. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics on your local election headquarters. Well, state leaders want to put up additional layers of protection to prevent non-citizens from voting in Louisiana. Governor Jeff Landry, along with Secretary of State Nancy Landry, signed an executive order aimed to protect election integrity in the state, especially as election season approaches. Numbers show that 48 non-citizens have been removed from the voter rolls since 2022. Cases of non-citizens casting ballots are extremely rare, and there's no evidence that non-citizens vote in significant numbers in federal elections.
Every time an illegal alien votes, it cancels out a vote from a citizen. This order will be in the form of a disclaimer on the declaration form. And just because you receive a voter registration form doesn't mean you're eligible to vote.
The executive order will make sure agencies don't provide voter registration forms to non-citizens and will also allow the Secretary of State to ensure that everyone voting is a citizen through proof of U.S. citizenship. Louisiana Attorney General Liz Morrell announced the state has secured a temporary administrative stay against the Biden-Harris administration's parole-in-place policy. This comes after a federal judge in Texas stopped a Biden administration policy that offers spouses of U.S. citizens without legal status who meet specific criteria an avenue to citizenship by applying for a green card and staying in the country while going through the process, according to the Associated Press. The policy could have allowed for around 7,000 undocumented immigrants in Louisiana to remain in the state, according to a news release. Governor Landry also signed an executive order banning critical race theory in Louisiana public schools. According to a release from the governor's office, critical race theory involves teaching students to, quote, view life through the lens of race and victimhood. Critical race theory, the subject of much controversy, is said to explain how historic policies like Jim Crow laws and redlining affected minority populations. We asked Landry's office and the Louisiana Department of Education whether CRT has been taught in any Louisiana schools. They did not respond. State lawmakers and the Attorney General are targeting Lafayette schools for their messaging around gun-free zones in the wake of the new permitless concealed carry law going into effect. The University of Louisiana Lafayette has backed away from claiming much of downtown Lafayette as a gun-free school zone after being threatened by legal action. Renee Allen reports.
The university says they sought additional clarification, which led to the determination that under law, the definition of a campus does not extend to property the university does not own. UL Lafayette admits they cannot enforce a safe school gun-free zone around the museum as the school does not own the facility. The same issue applies to the local hotels rented by UL for student housing. The university says they have taken down the signs.
It's not part of the school. It's not even listed on the school map. The university does not own the property of the museum.
The Director of State Affairs for Gun Owners of America, Chris Stone, explains the gun rights nonprofit organization planned to sue if the school and LCG did not stop enforcing the firearm-free zone.
We're demanding that they stop enforcing this firearm-free zone and take the map off of their website. We're asking the police, both the campus and the city, to not enforce this.
In a statement Wednesday, the university says they've replaced the safe school zone signage with a weapons-free facility, which takes away the 1,000-foot gun-free buffer outside the museum.
They're out of step with the actual code of the state of Louisiana, as we laid out very clearly in the letter that we sent them. But yeah, our legal team is definitely prepared to take them to court.
Meanwhile, Gun Owners of America tells us they are clarifying the recent changes with their attorneys. Renee Allen reporting, KLFY News 10.
And Governor Landry is asking state police to investigate the Department of Corrections following reports of poor prison conditions at the Elaine Hunt Correctional Center in St. Gabriel. This comes after the head of Louisiana's prison system, Jimmy LeBlanc, suddenly stepped down Friday because of reported health issues. His resignation goes into effect Thursday. Now Landry says Gary Westcott will run the state prison system. Westcott has nearly 30 years of experience in probation and parole management. He recently served as the deputy secretary. Westcott replaces Jimmy LeBlanc. Louisiana Insurance Commissioner Tim Temple says he's making strides in addressing the state's insurance crisis. Temple and state leaders met in St. George to discuss the root problem. Temple says Louisiana has more than $24 billion paid out in claims. Many auto and home insurance companies moved to other states, but leaders say they're seeing progress. More insurance companies are filling out paperwork to come here, but there's more work to be done.
Everything did not get across the finish line the way we were hoping with that, but we're not going to give up. We're going to keep working hard.
We're trying to bring transparency to what are the issues and create solutions, because that's what we did with property.
Temple says there will be more public meetings on insurance, the next one in October. A transition plan has been proposed for the new city of St. George. The Baton Rouge City Parish will continue providing all services to neighbors until St. George leaders hire the personnel or secures contracts to do so on their own. Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome says this plan gives St. George leaders enough time to develop their own plan and allows the city parish to more effectively plan and budget for the future.
My goal as the parish president is to make sure that I look out for all the citizens of our city and parish. But I do believe that the leaders of St. George, who are working in the best interests of the city's residents, are seeking an efficient transition of the delivery of services.
Now, we reached out to St. George leaders about this proposal, but have not gotten a response yet. Well, LSU is getting federal funds for the famous campus mounds. We'll tell you all about it next.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. Louisiana State University is getting a grant from the federal government to preserve the campus mounds that were constructed by Native Americans thousands of years ago. Shannon Hecht brings us details of the future plans for the flagship campus.
LSU is getting a major grant from the federal government to better protect the Native American mounds in the center of campus that are thousands of years old. The two mounds in the center of LSU's campus hold many memories for generations of people on game day or during their time as students. Those memories took place on a historical site built by Native American tribes between 6,000 to 11,000 years ago.
So they're likely social or ceremonial in importance, and they're still sacred to tribes today.
The National Park Service pledged more than $220,000, which the school will match, to preserve the site through replanting the grass and removing the sidewalk that is no longer used.
They've been on the National Register of Historic Places for national significance since the late 1990s. And so LSU has known that they're important, but I think that that awareness has grown in recent years.
LSU has a bigger plan that will cost around $6 million to reroute traffic in front of the field house, build pathways, and a viewing platform.
Our plan is to make the mounds an attraction but an attraction from a distance.
After the preservation projects are complete, LSU wants to use the mounds as an educational place for school trips and lessons about the state's rich Native American history. The university is still looking for donations for their grander project ideas for viewing and preservation for the mounds. In Baton Rouge, I'm Shannon Hecht.
The Louisiana Department of Education is implementing new guidelines that involve AI technology for K-12 educators and students in the state. The guidelines are designed to help improve school systems and keep learning inside the classroom. The Department of Education wants to make sure that AI is used responsibly. The goal is to promote security, transparency, ethical data, and address students' needs.
There's certainly a balance, and I think that if we look at our guidance, it gives school systems a starting point of creating processes and procedures that they will follow in their school system that effectively addresses the needs of their students.
Schools want to ensure that students are getting accurate information in their lessons and that their work they're submitting is original. The new policies will be going into effect this school year. In Louisiana's big tourist attraction, the French Quarter, crime is on the rise, despite it dropping everywhere else in the state. Mallory Smith brings us a look into what can be done to address that.
While crime trends throughout New Orleans continue to drop, the city's seeing a new hotspot for homicides.
No longer is the French Quarter the safest from a violent crime perspective citywide.
What used to be considered one of the safest spots in the city is becoming harder to hang out in.
Unless I'm doing a job or something, I don't come out here. Yeah, I come out here for work, that's it.
According to the Metropolitan Crime Commission, last year's stats kept up with the average trend of 5 to 6 8th District shooting deaths a year, topping out at 3 during the months of January 1st to August 25th. 2022 was the high watermark for homicides in the quarter, 7 of them within that same time period. But according to the NOPD, so far this year, there's been 9 total homicides in the 8th District.
Looking at the last 3 years in the French Quarter, we're not really seeing a spike in shootings. What we are seeing a spike in the shootings that result in a death or a homicide.
While looking over the numbers with Goyeneche, we found the amount of shootings over the past 3 years in the 8th District have stayed fairly consistent. 20 total shootings in 2022, 19 in 2023, and 20 in 2024. So if the number of shootings has remained steady, why has the number of homicides gone up?
The only thing that's really changed is the aim of the shooter. And, generally speaking, when you see an increase in homicides, it's usually a result of drug activity. That's not the case of what we're seeing in the French Quarter. What happens in the French Quarter is that there's a lot of pedestrian foot traffic. And the people that want to commit violent crimes, whether it be an armed robbery or a carjacking, they're looking for opportunities.
Goyeneche says the best way to drive down crime is by holding those accountable, adding the NOPD has made arrests in 7 of the 9 8th District homicides.
Well, this week we saw the anniversaries of both Hurricane Katrina and Ida. We'll look back in remembrance and look forward to recovery next.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. Well, this week on the 19th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell and other community leaders remembered the day at the Katrina Memorial in Mid-City at the city's annual wreath-laying ceremony. Take a look. It's one of the deadliest and most destructive hurricanes in U.S. history. The aftermath of the storm left more than 1,000 people dead. The memorial in Mid-City is where nearly 100 unidentified or unclaimed victims are buried. It's formed in the shape of a hurricane and was established by local funeral homes after the storm to honor the unidentified victims. And 3 years ago, Hurricane Ida made landfall at Port Fourchon as a Category 4 storm. It would do billions of dollars in damage and claim the lives of multiple Louisianans. 3 years later, recovery has come a long way, but things are not back to normal. Shannon Hecht brings us the story.
After making landfall at the tip of Lafourche Parish with winds reaching 150 miles per hour, Parish President Archie Chasson watched his community get ripped apart.
Ida was the most powerful hurricane ever hit Lafourche, the most devastating by far.
Chasson says that there is a lot of work going on to build back, and homeowners are slowly getting their houses in order.
It's still very much a struggle. If I had to put a number on it, I think we're probably about 75% of the way recovered.
The National Hurricane Center estimates the storm caused more than $2 billion of damage in the parish and $75 billion statewide. Chasson says that the city and parish have had their own battles with insurance, and roof work is happening just this week. There are still about 200 people in temporary housing and around a dozen in state-provided trailers in Lafourche.
But some of it is people who just didn't have insurance. I got a little bit of money from FEMA and just don't have the ability to rebuild quite yet. Some of them are caught up with insurance lawsuits. Some of them are caught up in the Restore Louisiana program.
The 2020 census showed a slight growth in population there, but after the storm, they're down 5 to 7%. Chasson says that those who are staying, there is a major migration north within the parish.
The bigger part of it for us has been the migration north. We see more and more people leaving the South Lafourche. Cost to rebuild is higher. They know what the insurance costs are going to look like staying in those particular areas.
While this work continues, hurricane season does put people on edge.
It's one of the things that keeps me up at night, to think about what happens with the scaffolding I'm looking at across the street at the courthouse, doing a $1.5 million roof project. And what if we get a hurricane next week that takes all of that away again?
But even with the long road of recovery and future storms down the road, the people of southern Louisiana know why they stay.
What we refer to it as God's country, right? Lafourche is the place that people want to live, work, and play. So we all know why we love to stay here and why we continue to fight to stay here. The conversation we really have is with everybody else.
In South Louisiana, I'm Shannon Hecht.
Government leaders aren't the only ones speaking about the recovery from Hurricane Ida. Ashley Hamilton traveled to Terrebonne to speak with homeowners who are still waiting to get back into their homes.
I had never seen so much destruction.
For small bayou towns like Montague, images of Hurricane Ida still haunt Janice Hamilton, who says a close friend is still living in a trailer outside of her destroyed home.
FEMA was supposed to come tear the remains of her house, so she's still in the FEMA trailer. The remains of her house is still there that she looks at every day.
The anniversary is a friendly reminder that in the blink of an eye, anything can be taken away.
You got to take what the good Lord's going to give you. And one day you can have it. You can have all you want in one day. And one day, another day, he can take it all away if he wants.
Others say they lost more than just their homes.
We grew up in that home. It was my home. It's kind of sad, but this is our home now. And I kind of lost a couple of my friends because of Ida, but had to deal with it.
In Chauvin, the blue roofs or FEMA trailers still sit outside many people's homes. Those like Scott say he was determined to rebuild his home for his family, though he understands other families were not as fortunate.
They got a lot of people leaving from Mob to Bayou because they can't afford nothing. Already they ain't got no money because they can't even afford the insurance for nothing. Flood insurance, wind insurance, all of it.
Though some say hurricane season brings bad memories, they still are grateful they were able to get through Hurricane Ida safely.
I just thank the good Lord every morning that we're still alive. And I thank him for what I'm doing. Because without his help, there ain't no way I can make it.
In Terrebonne Parish, Ashley Hamilton, WGNO News.
In Washington, Vice President Kamala Harris sat down for her first major interview since becoming the Democratic pick for president. Trevor Shirley reports.
Appearing on CNN, Vice President Kamala Harris addressed her changing positions on several subjects over the years.
As Vice President, I did not ban fracking. As President, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, she said she favored a fracking ban, now defending her shift.
Let's be clear, my values have not changed.
Harris showed little daylight between herself and President Joe Biden in terms of Israel policy, saying she would not withhold U.S. arms shipments to Israel.
I'm unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense and its ability to defend itself.
Former President Donald Trump reacted to Harris's interview on Truth Social, claiming Harris, quote, changed every one of her long-held positions on everything. Last night at a town hall in Wisconsin, the former president made news by saying he supports the government pay for in vitro fertilization or mandate insurance companies cover the cost.
We want to produce babies in this country, right? We want to produce babies.
Democrats hit back, saying they've pushed for that legislation before, which Republicans have repeatedly killed.
Up next, we'll have a look at the week ahead on your local election headquarters. Stay with us.
This is your local election headquarters.
Okay, looking ahead to the coming week, on Monday, state offices will be closed for Labor Day. On Tuesday, the House Education Committee meets at 10 at the Capitol to go over the new policies passed in the legislative session. On Thursday, the Senate Judiciary C Committee will meet at 9 at the Capitol to hear about post-conviction relief controversy. Thank you so much for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics. I'm Fred Childers. Stay informed, and I'll see you next Sunday right here on your local election headquarters.